On September 11th, 2001, the United States was suddenly and deliberately attacked by 19 terrorists affiliated with the extremist group Al Qaeda. In a coordinated effort, these terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airliners. 2 planes were flown into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, causing both to collapse within hours. Another plane struck the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. The fourth, United Flight 93, crashed into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers heroically fought the hijackers, thwarting their intended target in Washington, D.C. This unprecedented attack resulted in the tragic loss of nearly 3,000 lives and marked a pivotal moment in U.S. and world history, igniting a global war on terror and fundamentally altering the national and international approach to security. But everyone knows the tragedy that took place on that fateful day. In the wake of 9/11, there was a palpable and urgent need for a robust response to not only seek justice, but to protect the nation from future threats. This atmosphere of vulnerability and demand for swift action led to the rapid development and passage of the Patriot Act, which stands as one of the most controversial and impactful pieces of legislation in American history. The aim of the Patriot Act was to create comprehensive legislation swiftly enough to address the nation's vulnerabilities that the attacks had exposed. Due to the national emergency, the bill was fast-tracked through Congress with minimal opportunity for amendments or detailed scrutiny. In the House of Representatives, the act received strong bipartisan support, passing with a vote of 357 to 66. The Senate showcased near-unanimous approval, passing the act with a vote of 98 to 1. Senator Russ Feingold from Wisconsin was the sole opposing vote, expressing concerns over potential infringements on civil liberties and the insufficient debate on the bill's provisions. On October 26, President George W. Bush signed the Patriot Act into law, less than 2 months after the 9/11 attacks, underscoring the urgent national demand for a robust legal framework to combat terrorism more effectively. The primary goal of the USA Patriot Act was to enhance national security, ensuring the United States could effectively prevent, detect, and respond to terrorist activities. To achieve this, the Act significantly expanded the surveillance powers of law enforcement and intelligence agencies, allowing them to monitor and intercept communications more broadly than before. A crucial objective of the legislation was to improve information sharing among various government agencies. This was designed to facilitate a more coordinated and effective response to terrorist threats by removing the legal and bureaucratic barriers that had previously hampered such collaboration. Additionally, the Act aimed to update the legal framework governing surveillance and intelligence operations. This update was essential to address the challenges posed by rapid technological advancements. By modernizing these laws, the Act enabled law enforcement and intelligence agencies to keep pace with the evolving methods used by terrorists. Several key sections of the Patriot Act have garnered significant controversy due to their implications for privacy and civil liberties. One of the most contentious is Section 215, which allows the FBI to demand any tangible things, such as books, records, papers, and documents, from any entity for investigations related to international terrorism or clandestine activities. This provision has raised substantial privacy concerns because of its broad scope, enabling the mass collection of telephone metadata from Americans without a warrant. Critics argue that this essentially acts as a general warrant, lacking the specificity and probable cause required by the Fourth Amendment. Another controversial aspect is Section 213, known as sneak and peek searches. It allows law enforcement to conduct searches of properties without immediately notifying the target of the search warrant. Notification can be delayed for a reasonable period, supposedly to avoid jeopardizing investigations. This section has been criticized for undermining the knock-and-announce principle that is integral to the Fourth Amendment, potentially leading to abuses of power without immediate accountability. Initial reactions were mixed, with some officials claiming the provision was crucial for not tipping off suspects, particularly in terrorism cases, while civil liberties groups and the public voiced concerns about the erosion of judicial oversight and potential misuse. Section 206, concerning roving wiretaps, also faces scrutiny. It permits wiretap orders that are not specific to a particular device, but can cover any device a suspect might use. This was designed to counter terrorist tactics of using multiple devices to evade detection. However, the flexibility of roving wiretaps has raised fears about the lack of specificity in surveillance orders, potentially sweeping in communications from individuals not involved in criminal activities. Government agencies have emphasized the necessity of adapting surveillance methods to the technological savvy of terrorists, but privacy advocates and the wider public are concerned about the potential for broad and unfocused surveillance. Overall, government officials, including those from the Bush administration, initially defended these provisions as essential tools in the fight against terrorism, arguing that they were necessary adaptations to counter modern threats effectively. However, the extensive criticisms and concerns highlight the ongoing debates about balancing national security with the protection of individual freedoms and privacy rights. The pros of the Patriot Act are substantial, offering enhanced measures for bolstering national security. The Act grants law enforcement and intelligence agencies expanded surveillance and interception powers, allowing them to proactively detect and prevent potential terrorist activities before they materialize. This proactive approach is critical in the fast-paced realm of national security threats. Additionally, the Act has broadened the investigative tools available to these agencies, including provisions for roving wiretaps and access to a wide array of business records, which enhance the ability to track and disrupt complex terrorist plots. Moreover, the Patriot Act has significantly improved interagency collaboration. By breaking down the barriers that have previously hindered the free flow of critical information, the Act has enabled various government entities, such as the FBI, CIA, NSA, and local police departments to share intelligence more effectively. This enhanced information sharing is vital for developing a coordinated response to threats, thereby increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of counterterrorism efforts across the nation. The cons of the Patriot Act, on the other hand, are just as substantial, if not more so, particularly concerning the erosion of civil liberties. Critics argue that the Act's broad surveillance powers represent a significant overreach, infringing on the privacy and freedoms of American citizens. This includes mass data collection without probable cause, which directly challenges the Fourth Amendment's principles. Furthermore, the expansive surveillance capabilities have been criticized for creating a chilling effect on free speech and association, making individuals wary of surveillance over their communications and activities. The Act also suffers from a lack of adequate oversight. The mechanisms for judicial review that were introduced by the Patriot Act are often seen as insufficient, with courts frequently rubber-stamping requests for surveillance orders. This lack of robust oversight raises serious concerns about unchecked government power and the potential for abuse. Additionally, the secretive nature of surveillance activities under the Act has made it difficult to assess the effectiveness and propriety of its use, leading to widespread calls for greater transparency and accountability. Moreover, the broad definitions and powers under the Act have led to instances where individuals not connected to terrorism have been surveilled or detained, raising concerns about due process and wrongful targeting. There have also been accusations that the Patriot Act has facilitated racial and ethnic profiling, particularly against Muslim and Middle Eastern communities, under the guise of counterterrorism. This potential for abuse highlights significant flaws in the Act, impacting not just individual rights, but also community trust and national unity. Over the years, there have been several changes in response to the controversy surrounding the surveillance measures implemented by the Patriot Act. The introduction of the USA Freedom Act in 2015 marked a significant legislative shift, directly addressing public and political backlash against the NSA's bulk data collection practices revealed by Edward Snowden in 2013. This act significantly reformed Section 215 of the Patriot Act, ending the bulk collection of telephone data and instead requiring that such data be retained by telecommunications providers, accessible to intelligence agencies only with a court order. Additionally, the Freedom Act enhanced transparency and oversight of surveillance activities by establishing panels to offer perspectives on privacy and civil liberties with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Public reaction to these changes were mixed. Many privacy advocates viewed the USA Freedom Act as a victory, though some argued it did not go far enough in curtailing surveillance powers, and others expressed concerns about potential impacts on national security capabilities. Looking back in hindsight, evaluating the results and effectiveness of the Patriot Act raises complex questions about its impact on national security and civil liberties. U.S. government officials, including those from the NSA and FBI, have publicly stated that the Patriot Act surveillance powers have been instrumental in thwarting numerous potential terrorist plots. These claims suggest the prevention of up to 50 terrorist plots worldwide, including about 10 domestic threats. However, verifying the direct impact of the Patriot Act on these successes is inherently challenging. The evidence often remains classified, and the multifaceted nature of intelligence operations means that multiple factors and agencies typically contribute to any given counterterrorism success. The secretive nature of national security and counterterrorism operations complicates any assessment of the Patriot Act's effectiveness. Details about thwarted terrorist attacks or the specific uses of surveillance tools under the Act are often undisclosed to the public. Furthermore, counterterrorism efforts generally involve numerous agencies and international partners, making it difficult to isolate the impact of the Patriot Act from the broader intelligence and law enforcement efforts. Criticism also comes from the oversight entities like the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, which has critiqued certain surveillance practices authorized under the Patriot Act. For instance, the bulk collection of telephone data has been deemed to have a minimal contribution to preventing terrorism, leading to questions about the necessity and proportionality of such measures. Additionally, there are concerns that the broad surveillance capabilities have sometimes been misused, focusing on targets and activities unrelated to terrorism. This includes instances where the Act's mechanism have been applied more effectively in drug enforcement operations than in counterterrorism, raising questions about the appropriate allocation of surveillance resources. This raises concerns about the mission creep and the potential diversion of counterterrorism resources to address issues outside the original intent of the Act. Critics argue that the application of the Patriot Act powers in non-terrorism contexts such as drug enforcement represents a significant deviation from the Act's original purpose and potentially infringes on civil liberties without clear counterterrorism benefits. In my opinion, the Patriot Act was an emotional and hasty response to 9/11. The government took advantage of a population in a state of hysteria and vulnerability. They pushed through legislation that directly infringes on the Fourth Amendment. It allows for sweeping surveillance and data collection without the need for a warrant. There's a fine line between privacy and national security, and I think the government way overstepped the line here with the Patriot Act. Yes, we need security, but not at the cost of privacy and civil liberty. It's about finding a middle ground where we aren't constantly under threat of being watched by our own government without probable cause. But I'm very interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this issue. Obviously, it's a very controversial issue, so make sure to drop your thoughts down in the comments. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button below. Make sure to check out our podcast Up in the Corner, where we post weekly episodes interviewing best-selling authors, expert historians, and combat veterans. If you want to support the channel, our Patreon is in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on our next adventure.